Well, hey, Fort Wayne, welcome to Fort Wayne Footy. This is episode number 5 of this show that we started here in Fort Wayne to celebrate and elevate the game of soccer in our backyard. Thanks for joining us. I've got a great cast tonight, as always, starting off the show. My name's Brian Biedenbach. I'm the host of the program here with Dustin Diller and Micah Middendorf talking about Fort Wayne FC's last match, most recently on Friday night against Lexington SC. Had to pull out a goal in the second half to pull out the draw with the newcomers to the league in Lexington SC II. Tonight we have as I said, we've got a great cast. We've got an interview with Coach Avery later on in the show. And we're going to talk about some other soccer that's coming up here in our city real soon. Dustin, let me welcome you in, man. How you doing tonight?
Doing good. Nice long weekend. A lot of good soccer that was had. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah. In fact, there's a game going on right now that is
that we're not going to know about.
We're not going to talk about. We're not going to know about. I had to shut it off, so I wasn't distracted tonight on the show. So yeah, good stuff. A lot of good soccer this weekend. Micah, welcome back to the show. We missed you last week, man. How you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm great. Happy to be back. Lots of soccer to talk about this week for sure.
We're now, just to catch everybody up, last week you were set to be on the show and like last minute texted us because you were at an awards banquet or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it was our senior awards banquet at the high school that I coach at Concordia Lutheran. I was expecting it to be hour and a half, maybe 2 hours max. I'm looking at the clock and it's 8 o'clock, 8:10, 8:20. And I'm thinking, man, I am 30 minutes away from my house right now. I don't know if I'm going to make it. So I was texting you guys and I had to pull out last minute, but no, it was great for the kids. Brought closure to a lot of the athletes, celebrated a lot of fantastic careers that we had, not just with the girls soccer team, but with the school as well. So it was meaningful. But 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes. It was a long night for sure.
Yeah. And because you missed, you got to skip the whole answering the question that I left us with the last week. Right. And so Autumn pulled that back out, threw it back at me if you missed last week's show, and asked me the same question about who's my favorite child. And it was a fun interaction. But here's the thing. You'll notice that Autumn's not on the show tonight. And it sounds like I told her not to, but that's not it at all. Autumn celebrated her birthday yesterday. And I think she just thinks because it's her birthday, she gets to skip out and miss our show. So guys, I don't know when your birthdays are, but I expect you to be on when the time comes. Is that all right?
Yep. You won't know when it's my birthday. It'll just be another day.
Oh, Same. We'll know. No, actually, she's got family in town and she's hosting. So wish her all the best. If you do get a chance, I put out a short reel yesterday. If you do get a chance to wish Autumn a happy birthday, please do so. She was great last week and she's good here on the show. Guys, let's thank our sponsor, FW22. They're a 501c3 nonprofit. They're organized to facilitate community involvement in the support and assistance of veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury, while simultaneously educating on suicide prevention and mental illness. Thank you to FW22 for your sponsorship of the show. Guys, we've got a great interview coming up here with Coach Mike Avery of Fort Wayne FC, and he's waiting backstage listening to us chat here now. We'll bring him on here in just a few moments. But I wanted to ask a question to kind of kick off tonight's show, because you mentioned you watched a lot of soccer this last weekend. I don't know what all you watched. I know there's a lot of Major League Soccer games on. As I mentioned, there's one on tonight. Fort Wayne FC played Friday night. They got kind of kicked off the weekend for us. There were, I think, at least 3 games last night, Major League Soccer games last night, where a team was up by 2 goals. And the score ended up flipping. And that team that was up by 2 goals ended up losing. And I see that pretty consistently in soccer at every age. And people joke, like I've always called 2-0 is the most dangerous score in soccer. And I have parents on the sideline of our field that the team will go up 2-0, and then we'll come back, we'll score one, we'll score a second, and they look at me and go, "You always say that, like it always happens." My question is, you guys have coached at different levels. Why is that? Why is a 2-goal lead so dangerous to hold and so difficult to hold?
I think sometimes you have to look at the manner of the 2 goals that were scored. If they were great goals, great build-up, very intentional with the play, then I think you're pretty safe with the 2-goal lead. But if you concede the 2 goals, right? Say that we're playing and we concede those 2 goals, and they were kind of maybe a fluke goal, maybe it was a set piece goal, and we find ourselves suddenly down 2-0. If we have the quality, once we get that one, then it's that little bit of confidence, a little bit of psychology that says, okay, we're playing well. We can get the second one. We're not worried. We'll keep doing and keep playing, being intentional with ours. Now, on the other side, if they are the intentional goals with the build-up play, connecting passes, final third, dangerous balls entering the box, then that's probably a pretty safe scoreline, right?
Yeah. Well, so we had one earlier this season, Micah, our kids team. Like, I think it was our first game of the season. We were down 2-0. Last 4 minutes, we scored 2 quick goals and tie it up. And we're on this high, this roller coaster, right? And then the last 30 seconds, we give up the goal to lose the match. And so the emotions of that moment were pretty crazy. You can ride that momentum. Maybe that's the thing, right? You down 2-0, you score the first one. Momentum is shifting in that moment, and you see what you can do. Dustin, any insight there? Like, I know you've seen that in games that you've coached and watched your kids have played in and all that.
Yeah, so I think I agree with what Micah said. I think part of it is the drive that you have then after you go down. Like if you've got that drive and you go and you score that first goal and then you score that second goal to get it even, I think that's the first thing. I think part of it may be complacency on the other team, the team that's ahead, thinking we're up 2-0, we're good to go, we've been dominating, and then that's when it kind of takes a turn. So I think it's a combination of both, depending on what the play of the game is. And sometimes it is, those fluke goals that go in don't really, the score doesn't really reflect what actually happened. And
Right.
So I think it depends on what 2 teams are playing and then kind of how we react. I mean, I think maturity is that you react in, let's go down and score another goal. You get complacent as a team going up. I think that's an easy way to lose some points too. So,
yeah, I think that's it's always baffled me, but it happens so often that 1-0, you're still battling and you're trying to hold that lead. 3-1, 3-0. I don't know. Like, there's something about that 2-goal lead that maybe we'll have Coach weigh in here in just a moment. Let's bring him in now. Welcome to the stage, Coach Mike Avery. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing really well. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, it's a little bit late in the nighttime for me. So you guys are younger than I am. So let's get rolling because I might fall asleep right here on the air. So
yeah. So just by way of introduction, Coach, you've had a successful playing career at Westmont College, 4 conference titles, I believe I read. With you on the field there. 4 years beyond college, you played at Real Santa Barbara and in Indiana Invaders. I believe there's another one in there. You can tell us about that maybe in a moment. You were named head coach at Bethel University. You coached men's and women's there, I believe. Your first women's head coach. That's a school near and dear to my heart. My daughter's there now playing some volleyball. Not soccer, but we do know some girls on the soccer team, and she's dating a boy that played soccer there at Bethel just this last year. So great school there. 3 years at Cal State Bernardino, assistant D1 Notre Dame and Louisville, and then 13 years as head coach at Valpo before coming to Fort Wayne FC. So you've had quite a career as a player and as a coach, and now hanging out with us here in Fort Wayne as the head coach of Fort Wayne FC. Coach, it really is glad to have you here. So you've been with Fort Wayne FC since the beginning, since they started, I believe, February of 2020. You were named the head coach. First season was played in 2021. So you had a year to kind of develop and get your team together there. What was it like preparing for your first season at Fort Wayne FC?
Yeah, that was COVID time. So, we had started the season. I got hired a little bit late in the process for that first year. They had actually maybe even agreed to terms with another coach. And I was coaching at Valparaiso at the time. And then Valparaiso had one of these budget cuts and eliminated soccer. And then literally on the same day, I got a call from Greg Mauk, who was the general manager of Fort Wayne FC at the time, and said, "Hey, look, we might have a coaching job for you, depending upon what happens with this other candidate who's got some visa issues over in Europe or something like that." I can't remember exactly what happened, but so I, very fortunate to have one door closed, another one open, and get started here right away. And then COVID came and kind of wiped out. COVID won the first season, and so that first season, I didn't build that roster. That roster was already picked for us when I got hired. They were actually preparing to go into a different league, not USL II. I think it was a different league. And then COVID wiped it out. So then we had that long pause on that season. And then when we started for the second season, which would have been our first season on the field, we had decided as a club that the guys who were with that original roster, we were going to give them a chance to ride along with us through that first year as well. And I'm really glad we did. A lot of really good guys that helped us launch this thing back in 4 or 5 years ago now. So it was hard, like everybody else. You didn't know if that pause was going to last a week or a month or a year. You didn't know what was coming. And so it was a difficult way, but maybe gave us time to catch our breath and get caught up on other things and prepare in other ways. So
so you guys were prepared to take the field at any moment until everything got shut down that year. Okay. I remember the jerseys, the inaugural jerseys that all had 20, the number 20 on the back, and then there was no season in 2020. So hang on to those jerseys. They may be worth something someday.
That's right. That's right.
Coach, you just talked about kind of the roster that you inherited, then the roster you built. What does that process look like when you're trying to build your roster? Because you have players from all over the country, different colleges. What does that recruiting process look like?
Yeah, I spent the better part of 30 years in college soccer, and recruiting is kind of the lifeblood of college soccer. And so it's similar in approach in some ways, where I sit in the office and there's a blank whiteboard behind me, and we have a target number. There's not a perfect number, but I usually target 26 players as kind of the target number. So it's 2 at each position, and then 1 each line extra. So 1 extra goalkeeper, 1 extra defender, 1 extra midfielder, 1 extra striker. That gives us 26. And so we kind of start to build and fill spots that way. It makes sure that we have balance in the squad, enough left-sided players and right-sided players and forwards and defenders and everything else. And so we kind of start to fill that way. And how we fill it, players come across my desk in a lot of different ways. A lot of them are contacts of mine. There's probably not a college soccer coach in the country who I don't know personally, having spent so much time in the business. So recommendations come in that way. I pour over a lot of video. I watch a lot of games. I don't know that there's anybody who's watched more college soccer live than I have over the last 5 years. I'm very fortunate because with Fort Wayne FC, they give me the resources to go out and watch games. And so, I'll find schools that play in a way that we want to play here, at an identity that we want to play, and try and find players that fit. And so a lot of our players come at the USL II level through college soccer. Also, we have the USL League One attached to us now that we know is coming for sure, but it's been on the horizon even before the official announcement. And so we get a lot of agents and overseas players that are looking to break into the U.S. game. And so they'll come to us with the idea that if things go well in USL II, when we make the jump, maybe there's someone we're going to have come up with us. And so that's certainly the case with this year's roster, but it's been kind of the case with all the rosters. There's been 1 or 2 guys that are getting in because they want to see what we're all about. If we like them, they like us, maybe they move up with us.
So I just had a question, like a follow-up question that I talked to Justin Cohn, your communications director there at Fort Wayne a few weeks ago. And he alluded to that too, that you're getting calls from players wanting to come here to Fort Wayne. They're getting, social media messages from players that want to come to Fort Wayne. What is it about? Is it the culture of the team? Is it the winning ways of the team? Is it the drive to get to the next level in USL I here in Fort Wayne? What's the draw to Fort Wayne from these players that are coming from all over the country?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. We have done a great job at our brand identity and putting that brand out there. Guys like Justin Cohn and others that work for the club that put our message out there. They see an opportunity. There's obviously, DeMarcus Beasley's name attached to the project, which certainly brings attention to it. But they understand that when you watch us play, we're an attractive team as a player to join into because of the style that we play. So I think there's all kinds of reasons why players want to come. And I love the fact that, our players literally come from all over the world. I think this year's roster, we have 27 players on the team. I think we counted 13 different birth countries listed out of 27
awesome.
People. It's amazing. We have, 4 or 5 teenagers on the team. We have 4 or 5 guys that are 26 or 27 years old that are married on the other end of the spectrum. We were in Lexington on Thursday night getting ready for the game in a hotel, and you're watching this massive Uno card game go on around the table, and all the languages and all the things that are going on around the table. I just think we're just so lucky. Like how often does someone get a chance to hang out in that kind of room? And it's literally my favorite part, the coming together of these people. Obviously, if you watch me coach, you talk to me, I want to win. There's no question. If you say I'll race you to the door, I might knock you over to get there first. But more importantly, it's about the people that we become because of the time that we spend together and the relationships that we build along the way. And I love that part of the chemistry, the alchemy of teams just coming together. I don't even know how it happens, but it just does.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about that. I'm glad that's a good segue. I was going to ask you about the team in general and the guys from all over the world, right? Like soccer is a unique sport in that sense. Maybe baseball is another one where players from other countries will come and you've got this multicultural phenomenon. Like NFL doesn't have that as much. We're starting to see some of that. NBA, maybe a little bit more. But soccer's always been a really international game with players from all over the world coming together to form a unit, to form a team that you've got to work with. And so I'm curious how you manage the different, the different cultures that guys come from, maybe struggling to speak the same language at times, maybe not, but then you're building this whole new culture where they're playing together on the field and the guys they celebrate one another, but then when they're on the field, it's something different. It's something unique there. How do you manage that as a coach?
Yeah, I think you said 2 words in that question that are critical there. Number 1, we don't manage it. Number 2, what we do is celebrate it. So we're not coming in and asking people to fit into some certain mold. And I think one of the problems in coaching, we use an analogy of puzzle, putting together a puzzle. If I just get the right player, the left back, he'll fit this piece of the puzzle, and then our picture is complete. That's not life because that's not people. And so, I think that a better analogy is like a mosaic. You get broken pieces and misshapen pieces and sharp edges and different colors. And we've got to create a beautiful picture out of that instead. And so we celebrate the uniqueness of that. We want them to come and bring everything that they have to bring to bear, because then we're better off. You know what I mean? I just honestly believe that we're better together than we are alone. And if I'm not going to come in and limit them, I want them to be everything that they are. And I want to learn from them, and I want to grow because of the time I've spent with them as much as what they spend with me and others. And so I think the celebrate is a better word than manage. Because it is what it's all about. It's us just becoming everything we are. Now, look, we also have to decide how we're going to play. There's cultural differences in how the game is viewed. In South America, they'll play a slower, more control style. In other parts of the world where the weather is different and the football history is different, they might play a more direct style. And we talk about it almost on a daily basis. It's like, listen, we can't play 11 different ways. We have to decide on one way and agree that there is no right way, but we're going to decide on one way. And then, they have to buy into that. So there is some massaging sometimes of what their ideas might be. And that's where coaching comes into it. And, but so far the guys have been amazing. This group that we have this year is a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughing that goes on at practice, mixed in with the hard work that happens, but they're coming together. And again, it's the most enjoyable part.
Yeah.
That's awesome. wanted to jump in just kind of back to like the games, the play. So are there any specific games or matches that you have circled on your calendar that you're either excited about or that may pose a big challenge to you as a team? What does that look like?
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to give you the most boring cliche answer ever. And I apologize about that, but all I care about is practice tomorrow morning. Honestly, I'm a one day at a time kind of person. Whatever is right in front of me, we're going to put everything that we can into it. And the game will come when it comes. Our next game is Kingshammer Columbus. It's a new team. So we're going to focus on that one. Obviously the international match is a lot of fun. We haven't had, I don't know that we've had enough history, and especially this year because they've changed some teams in our division to develop real rivalries. We've played Cincinnati a lot. We've played Dayton a lot, but every team, the league can be really interesting because the rosters can shift. We might play a team once, and the second time we play them, the whole roster might be different. There are teams that roster 50, 60 players. We're not doing that. That's not what we do. We try and keep one team together and build a team. And it doesn't make them right or wrong. They just have different, ideas about what they want that club to serve those players. We're trying to build a club that when we make the jump up, we don't have to change processes and systems. We're trying to put things in place now that translate to the next step. And that's always kind of been our approach. But, all the games are important. And I'll tell you what, this year's league schedule is going to be really challenging. The rosters are it's the strongest league that we've ever played in. So if we're going to try and win another one, it's going to be a really tough task.
Yeah, I imagine you mentioned the jump to USL 1 next year. Like I'm really excited about that, and I know you are as well as a coach and as a team. As far as the rosters go, you spoke to that a little bit already. What you're planning and how you're planning to make the jump. So I've been watching Kingshammer Cincinnati recently. So I'm an FC Cincinnati fan. Grew up in Cincinnati. And I know they just signed 2 former FC Cincinnati players in Corbin Bone and Kenny Walker. And so their roster build is very different than the way you're building your rosters. And so I can imagine that poses a challenge when you've got guys coming in that have played at different levels that are just kind of finishing out a career, just having some fun because they're not doing anything else right now. They're good players or tough players. But my question wrapped inside of that is, what do you anticipate as you move from USL 2 to USL 1 being like every level? I know the speed of play is a little different. The style of play is a little different. What do you anticipate being the biggest jump and the biggest hurdle for Fort Wayne FC?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time in this team talking about, we have 4 guys, I think, if I'm correct, that have League One or equivalent level, maybe even higher level experience in our team. And we talk to them all the time, like, okay, what does it mean to be a professional? I played a little bit professional. DeMarcus had an incredible career as a professional. We can talk from our experiences to them, but having their peers talk about what does it mean to be a pro, really, it's not necessarily the guys, again, Friday, we're in Lexington, 2 guys that got drafted in the MLS, Michael Adedokin, Forster Jago, that played for us here in Fort Wayne two summers ago, are on loan to Lexington with their USL championship team. So we got a chance to spend some time with them in the hotel and before the game on Friday. And you ask them, same question, what's the difference? And the answer always is consistency. It's not technique. It's not physicality. It is mentality and consistency. It's bringing your best game every single day without the ups and downs that young players often go to or inexperienced players often go through. It's trying to find a level that is consistent and raising it and keeping it there all the time. Every day, the demands of it. We have a player right now, Tavio de Almeida. He played in the English Championship as a young guy, which is a really high level, just one step below the EPL. You watch him train on a daily basis. There's not a day where you don't think he's one of the top 1, 2, maybe 3 players on the field every single day. And when you talk to other players who are similarly talented in our squad about their journey, they all reference him. I'm just watching Tavio and I'm trying to be that consistent with my play. And that just comes from his experience. And so we're trying to help diffuse that through the team, just being consistent. Us as coaches staying on them about the details, them reminding each other about the details, and then that performance base.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Coach, I know it's late. We really appreciate you joining us. We want to get you out in time, respect your time. Thank you for joining us. I do want to ask, you heard maybe a little bit of our conversation early on about the 2-goal lead and how dangerous that can be.
Sure.
Any thoughts on that? Would you weigh in on that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, a 2-goal lead's better than a 1-goal lead, I think. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's one of those things it does happen, and it happens so often it becomes a cliche, and that's why it's a cliche, because it happens for real. I always say this, like, when we go into halftime and we happen to be up by 2 goals, the message often to the team is like, listen, it's a fight now for the 3rd goal. If we get it, game's a wrap. If they get it, game's back on again. And so it's usually a mentality thing. I think someone mentioned complacency. I do think that has a lot to do with it. One team's really pushing and one team's holding on, and maybe playing not to win anymore, just playing not to lose. And that's not a great mindset to go into.
Yeah.
But I don't know the answer, because if I did,
it would never
somewhere else. So.
It would never happen. Yeah. Well, Coach, I want to throw a comment here on the screen from Christina Copeland from Three Rivers Regiment. She says, we're beyond blessed to have Coach Avery here in Fort Wayne. And if he ever moves on from Fort Wayne FC, love to pitch him taking over as gaffer for Man United. There you go.
Yeah, well, listen, I love Christina, number one. Number two, I love Man United, and there's not a chance I would touch that job with a 100-foot pole at the moment. They got some amazing work to do. Yeah. I feel like a long-suffering Man United fan at the moment, but it's been hard to watch. I wish him well, though.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you mentioned you've got 2 games coming up this week, one Wednesday night at home at Bishop Darcy Stadium, and then one Saturday night, both against Kingshammer Columbus on Wednesday, Kingshammer Cincinnati on Saturday. We're hoping, we were just talking before the show, we're hoping to all 3 of us get out there to at least one of those games, hopefully both of them. So we'll see you, we'll wave to you in the stands and cheer you guys on.
Listen, guys, I love what you're doing, and I appreciate your support, and the conversations about our team is really, really important, that we keep getting the message out. So if there's any way I can ever help, just call for sure.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Yeah.
Have a great night, you guys.
Thanks,
all right. You too. All right. Fun interview. Really appreciate Coach Avery jumping in here on Fort Wayne Footy to join us for this episode. Guys, we watched Fort Wayne FC get to play on Friday night. He referenced the game in Lexington, Kentucky against Lexington SC II. This is their 2s team. We had Justin Blair on as a guest last week to talk a lot more about their championship side and what maybe we can expect, because their team was just announced like days before their first match. And so none of us really had much of an idea of what Lexington SC was going to bring to the table. Dustin, I know you watched the match. I was watching as long as the match was on. The stream cut out late in the second half, or about halfway through the second half. Early on, I almost messaged you and said, I don't think Lexington is going to touch the ball in the first half, because Fort Wayne FC had so much control and possession of the ball. And then they got a break, something changed. Talk about what you saw in that first part of the first half, Dustin.
Yeah. So first of all, they did not play like they had just released their roster. That's for sure. They played a really good game. That was, I mean, I think when we talked to Justin last week, he's expected us to win 2-0, and it did not. I mean, obviously it did not turn out that way. I mean, we got the draw, but in the first half, again, we dominated the first half of the half, and then it just took a turn. When they got their goal, I felt like they had possession of the ball majority of the time for the second half of the first half of the game. It just looked like we were kind of just kicking the ball, just kind of, getting it right to them, not connecting our passes, just kind of looked completely off. And then started the second half, kind of started the same way. And then about 5 minutes in, I just felt like it switched, and we just dominated the rest of the play that we could see. We obviously didn't see the last 20 minutes of the game, but when we scored, and then I just felt like we dominated from that perspective. They had a beautiful goal. I mean, their goal was beautiful, a ball in that they just punched right in. And so, yeah, I felt like I agree. I was like, okay, it is going to be a 2-0 game at the beginning of the game, and then a light switched in Lexington, and they turned it on, and they looked really good for the second half of that first half.
Yeah. Justin talked about them playing, because their championship side plays mostly out of the back, testing the wings. I did see some of that in what I could see in the match. It was hard to really tell. You could see this time, you could see it clearly. Last time we had commentary, but could against the Dayton Dutch Lions, we had commentary, but couldn't really see much of what was happening. This time it was a pretty clear picture, but there was no commentary. So it was really kind of hard to follow a game in that sense. But I did see them working down the sidelines, possession in the back. Go into halftime. Teams always make adjustments at halftime, right? We talk how important that halftime time is to regroup, to motivate your players, to reset, make some adjustments. And the Fort Wayne FC comes out, equalizes in the 56th minute. Aboubacar Traore, I believe I'm saying that right, equalizes in the 56th minute, ball down the side, beats a player, runs in. Micah, you saw the highlight of that goal, I think, that Fort Wayne FC posted on their social media. What'd you see in his movement, his ball movement off the ball when he received the ball, his touch on the ball?
Yeah, I think absolutely his pace was beyond anyone else on the field. And sometimes as a coach, we want to throw these tactics out and we want to play this way. Sometimes it just comes down, just be faster than the guy next to you.
Yeah.
You can't coach pace, right? So if you have those weapons, put them in the right starting positions, put them in areas where you can use them. And I think we made the right adjustments to take advantage of the physical characteristics of Traore.
Yeah. I believe I read an article on Fort Wayne FC's website. So if you get a chance to visit their site, check out their game recaps. I think there was a quote from him, and I'm not quoting it exactly, but he said at halftime, the guys told him, "You're faster than everybody else on the field. Make more runs and get in behind. We'll get you the ball." And he said, so that's what I did. And that's the ball comes, he gets in behind and he slots a ball past the keeper to the far post. Beautiful finish, beautiful touch on the ball. So one of the things we didn't get a chance to ask Coach was some of the partnerships. And I believe seeing some of the partnerships develop on the field, to guys even saying to know your strengths well enough to say, just go and we will get you the ball. That's pretty key as a coach. Am I right? Micah, how would you, as you coach partnerships, even at the high school level, I know you coach at the college level too. Are you coaching players to recognize strengths in each other, or just go out there and do what you do the best that you can and everybody else will do the best that they do?
No, absolutely. There has to be that kind of whole vision of who you're playing with, what are the skill sets, especially when you come to those physical characteristics where if someone is faster, how to utilize that pace, where do they want the ball? And I mean, you'll see it in training, but at the same time, when you get to that match, the speed of the game with the matches, it's recognizing those moments under pressure, under duress. And I see Aboubacar down the wing. I can play a ball within a 10-yard radius of it. It doesn't have to be a great ball. I just get it in the general area behind, and he'll find a way to get on the other end of it. So, absolutely. You recognize that. And as a player, you want to utilize those physical characteristics.
Well, and how much of that does off-field camaraderie play a role? I mean, I think, Coach Avery talked about it, how much he celebrates the diversity and celebrates what the guys are bringing to the table. And, you can start to see that as the team develops when they have those relationships outside. I mean, even like our boys who have played, like when you have those relationships outside, off the pitch, in the hotel rooms, at tournaments, those kinds of things, plays a major role when you feel comfortable with your teammates on the pitch then after that. So I loved what he said about that too, is you can start to see it coming to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that message that he had where he changed it from managing to celebrating. Be your unique self, utilize who you are, and at the end of the day, just keep it simple, right? Like know your strengths, know what's going to be successful, and then just play and your teammates will find you.
Yeah, good message, good interview, good thoughts on the game this last week. Looking forward to seeing Fort Wayne FC at home live back at Bishop Darcy Stadium this week. As we mentioned, they've got 2 games coming up. Wednesday night, May 28th at 7 p.m. They play Kings Hammer Columbus, who is a new team to USL2. So Kings Hammer is expanding, and they're putting teams everywhere. I think one in Columbus. I think there's 2 teams. A men's and a women's team that they just started in Florida, I believe, this last season too. So they've got teams everywhere. It's a club that's growing, and they're developing some talent. So anxious to see what they're bringing to Fort Wayne with their Columbus team this week. And then on Saturday, they face off. Fort Wayne FC faces off against Kings Hammer from Cincinnati, who has been in the league for a number of years. Always a tough team, always a challenge. And as I mentioned, they just signed 2 former pro players that played for FC Cincinnati, and Corbin Bone, who is a strong midfielder, both of them, Corbin Bone and Kenny Walker, strong midfielders. So I'm actually personally excited to see that match because those are 2 guys that I've had a chance to sit down with and interview live in person with Kenny Walker once last summer at the soccer tournament, the 7-on-7 tournament that they do in North Carolina. I think it's happening in a week or 2. And then Corbin Bone on the other podcast, Cincinnati Soccer Talk, that I do. Just fantastic guys. Looking forward to seeing them play, but pulling for an Fort Wayne FC win in both of those matches. I would be remiss to, as we talk about those games, to not tell you about the promotions that are going on that night. So I know it's the last week of school for many of our kids. Dustin, your kids finish up on Wednesday?
Finish up on Wednesday. It's like a celebration night.
Yeah. And Micah, when do your kids finish up?
My daughter finished up on Friday. My son
already done.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
She was home all day. But my son, I believe the high school gets out on Thursday. So he's almost done. I think they have finals the rest of the week this week.
Okay. Well, Wednesday night is report card night at the Fort Wayne FC match. If you show up and you've got an A on your report card, kids get in free with a parent admission. So, Micah, I don't know that if you have an A on your report card, you get in free. But your kids, if they have A's on their report cards, they get in free if you pay. So fantastic opportunity to get kids out to the field and watch a great game, especially for those who are just finishing up school that day. Good chance to get out and celebrate. For my kids, they've got one more day. So Thursday will be their last day of finals. I'll see if I can get them out there. I know one is really going to want to stay home and study so he can hit that final on Thursday, but we'll see. So report card night, Wednesday, May 28th, this coming week. And then Saturday against Kings Hammer Cincinnati, it's mental health awareness and healthcare workers night at the Fort Wayne FC game. So if you have your healthcare or mental health provider's ID, your ID or your proper credentials to get into the game, it's a BOGO, buy one, get one, to get into the game that night. So Fort Wayne FC is doing a great job of getting people, doing some promotions, getting people to the games. I'm looking forward to catching my first match of the season. I missed the Swain UFC match. They're friendly when they started, so I'm looking forward to getting out there for my first match of the season. 1927, just some catch up here, guys. Some things that are happening around Fort Wayne. 1927 did not play this last week. They had a week off, but they resume play on Saturday as well against new in-state rival Goshen SC. And I'm kind of bummed I'm missing that game.
I know.
Kind of
It's
bummed.
in Goshen, though.
I understand, but I'm telling you, I don't know how Goshen SC is going to play, but I know how they play when my kids play clubs from Goshen, and it's a tough physical match.
Yep.
And I expect Goshen SC to play that way too. So I hope to catch maybe when they're in town later this season. So 7 p.m. that one's in Goshen, and then so that's the big teams that we've talked about here recently. I know there's been some other things going on. What in the world of soccer have you guys watched, seen, been a part of recently, or coming up this week that you're looking forward to?
I think for me, I mean, if we're looking at like just overall soccer. Obviously the MLS matches, but it's a great summer of soccer coming up. We have the Gold Cup here. I think FC Cincinnati is hosting a couple matches. And then the Club World Cup, where you have it's clubs bringing their top teams in, high quality games. So it's not these preseason tours that you see with City or United or Barcelona when they come in, but it's their top teams, their best players in a competitive environment. So I'm excited to watch those games.
Yeah, I think MLS this last weekend was great. There were a lot of really good games. I think, the season's still, in full swing. So the week coming up, a lot more games to watch. At Fort Wayne FC having 2 games in 1 week, both at home, is huge. And then, I'm excited to see those. I loved 1927 SC game that we went to last week. So I'm excited for when they're back to go to another game, and kind of watch that, but agree.
Yeah.
I think the, Club World Cup is going to be pretty awesome, this summer, to watch. And then we'll hopefully get on that Gold Cup here in just a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll save that till just the end of the show here in a few minutes. But it is interesting, the MLS schedule. I know we don't have an MLS team here in Fort Wayne, but we are celebrating the game of soccer here in Fort Wayne and elevating the game of soccer. So knowing what else is out there, knowing what else is happening, I think is something that I want to keep in front of us. Because of the Club World Cup coming to the United States this year, and Leagues Cup is this tournament right in the middle of the MLS season, with Canadian teams and US teams and Mexican teams. Like it condenses, like it crunches a lot of the MLS schedule to just before that. And then they take almost a month or 2 break and then play a lot of congested games after it. So we're heading into that time. The Club World Cup starts, I believe, mid-June. And so there's a lot of MLS teams playing Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday matches coming up. And so there's a lot that you can catch on TV. There's a lot you can catch online. So I think one of the best ways to learn the game of soccer is to watch the game of soccer and to watch it at a high level. Listen to the commentary, listen to the commentators, listen to, the players that are talking as much as you can hear on the field. Sometimes you can hear more than you want to hear in some of those moments, but watch the game. Like, there's so much to learn. I think that's one thing that I tell my son, right, is watch the game and watch the position that you play, right? And so I think I would tell parents, I would tell other folks that are trying to get into the game, is to watch the position you're most interested in, or watch the position your son or daughter plays when you watch a game, and see their movements, learn the game a little bit more, so you can not coach them from the sideline, but have those great conversations after the match about what they did and what they didn't. So a lot of good stuff coming up. I do want to just put a shout out there to, I know there's teams, we talked last week about State Cup. Some teams advanced, some teams did not. There is a team from Fort Wayne Sport Club, Augsburg, 2011 boys. I believe it's 2011 boys qualified for regionals in Kansas City this summer for winning their division in the Great Lakes Conference. So I said it in one of our preview shows, we have teams from this area that are competing at all levels all over the country. That's one that got a shout out this week. So I just want to put this out there, that if you're listening and you have some news to report where you play, where your kids play, the club that they're playing for, the club that you support, things that are happening in town, or a team that's, advancing to another level or another tournament, we'd love to celebrate that here on the show. So let us know. Send us an email to info@Fort Wayne Footy is a great way to do that. info@FortWayneFooty.com. Let me finish that for you. And then on Facebook, leave us a message. Send us a chat or comment on one of our videos on YouTube or Instagram that's coming soon. We'd love to get just to highlight and celebrate the soccer that's happening all over Fort Wayne. So I'm going to pitch it to you now, Micah, because we talked about the Gold Cup, and we have some extra time here. This sometimes is a segment that we rush to get through. But here at the end of the show, we like to pull out a topic and kind of look at it from different angles, different sides, and just throw it out there. So Micah, You mentioned the Gold Cup earlier. I want to pitch it to you because you are leading the way in tonight's extra time.
So I will watch every single U.S. men's national team game any time of the day, anytime. One of my favorite stories of all time, back in 2000, oh man, I want to say 2006, right as the U.S., right as they were going in their World Cup send-off. I distinctly remember that there was a match in Connecticut that they were playing. Wasn't planning on going. All of a sudden, I looked at a map and I'm like, I can get there in 12 hours. I can get out to New Hartford, Connecticut, wherever it was. Talked to my fiance, now my wife, said, hey, do you want to make this drive? We left at 5 p.m., got there, whatever time it was, slept a couple hours, watched the match, and drove straight back because we both had to work the next day. So that's how diehard I am for the U.S. men's national team. Looking at this roster, there's some names that are omitted. Pulisic is the one where they're citing that he had too many, or they want to keep him healthy, too many minutes this season, which is fine, but we're missing. Weah's not on the roster. Musa, Anthony Robinson, probably one of the best left backs in all the EPL right now, where he's being linked to Liverpool, being linked to Arsenal, some of these top teams. And he's an established EPL player. Obviously, McKennie is missing because of the Club World Cup. Josh Sargent, who has been scoring at a really good clip in the championship, he was omitted for football reasons, which is probably an odd choice because the U.S. men's national team has struggled scoring goals. Wouldn't you want that goal scorer in? And then at the end of the day, we're a year away from a World Cup. We alluded to it with Coach Avery, that bringing a team together. I have huge concerns for this Gold Cup, especially since we just lost the Nations League, lost to Panama, lost to Canada back to back. I feel like I'm ranting like Alexi Lawless right now, but I want the best for this team, and I believe in this team. I believe in this sport. I'm just hopeful that Pochettino has the right players and has the right ideas in mind right now.
So I got a couple thoughts on that, and just you struck a chord a little bit here. So two things. One, and I know Dustin, you're going to talk about the fight, and that Poch wants to have, and so Josh Sargent, number one, scoring goals at a great clip in a league that he's playing in, but he's not performed well as
he hasn't with the US
national team player.
Yeah.
And I've always been rooting for him. Like I've always wanted him to be the guy to step up since he was a young player getting his first cap with that team, but he's not performed well in that space. And so his absence doesn't surprise me because he's been in and out so much, even though he's scoring goals where he's at. The other one of the other things, though, is we do have guys like Brandon Vasquez that are getting in, Brian White that are getting in, that are proven goal scorers that haven't had much of an opportunity with U.S. men's national team. But I would say maybe I'm a little biased on the Brandon Vasquez side. He's a smart player. He's a strong player. He's good in the air, and he's a guy that can score, that just has played behind guys like Pulisic and Weah and others that have played up top that maybe have they've played in different leagues and bigger leagues and better leagues. So I'm excited to see guys like Brian White and guys like Brandon Vasquez get an opportunity to get out there. And with the absence of other guys, sure, there's going to be holes in the field. But if I'm a new coach coming in that has coached these guys in a previous tournament that have way underperformed, not having them there, gives other guys an opportunity to see what you have, right, moving into the World Cup in next year, but also might light a fire and say, look, these guys have performed and you had your shot. You were given, like it was just there for you and you didn't take advantage of it. So I don't know that I mind. Like I'm a little concerned about some of these omissions on the roster.
Yeah.
But I think it's a new coach seeing what he's got and trying to light a fire under some guys that say, look, if you're not going to do it, we've got it's the next man up. Here we go.
Yeah. And I hope that's what it is, to be completely honest. I always love between the U.S. men and the U.S. women. I watch every single game that they have. I always love seeing young players get their caps with the teams. I love watching it. I just think it's a year away from the World Cup, like a year away from the World Cup. And we're still trying to figure out who wants to play, who wants to have that desire to play for the men's national team. And it's just, to me, I'm like, I love seeing these guys that come in, and maybe they'll dominate, and then it will put pressure on these guys that decided not to come and play for the Gold Cup. I do like what Posh said about, we want players that are desperate to perform, because we haven't performed the last 2 games. We looked like absolute trash against Canada and against Panama. We looked terrible. And so I want to see if this does push them. And I hope that's the case. I hope it, you know what I mean? I hope it doesn't do the opposite. But I just wonder what is underlying in these guys. When the coach is talking about, we've got a year before the World Cup, we prepare now. We don't prepare 6 months before, 9 months before. You do every single day that you possibly can to prepare for a World Cup, especially when you're hosting it. And so what is the underlying thing going on with these players that are choosing not to come here? And, I hope maybe someone like Diego, we talked about Diego Luna. I hope he comes in and he just dominates like he did in, the Nations League. I hope he does this. I hope that it pushes these other guys to realize, hey, guess what? We can't rest on our laurels. And the fact that we play overseas in EPL, we need to prove ourselves on the national team too. Because a lot of them have not recently. So. Yeah,
and I love that reference with Diego Luna, he gave his nose. He broke his nose in the last match. And I think there's a conversation with him and Pochettino on the sideline where it was like, hey, we're going to take you out. He's like, no, this is my opportunity. I have waited so long to get these call-ups, and it was so long since my last call-up.
Yep.
I need to prove now that I'm good enough to be here. So, it's I so badly want to trust it, and I see it, but I can't handle losing to Panama again. I am still scarred from that night in Trinidad and Tobago. 6 years, 7, 8 years ago now, where I think I was in shock, where that was one of the first times where I'm like, I'm absolutely speechless that we're not going to a World Cup. So I'm concerned. I guess at this point it's just trust the process. Brian, you mentioned the Brian White, Brandon Vasquez, and then Josh Sargent omitted. I think there's a lot of value in that too, where the CONCACAF teams tend to sit deep, right? Like in the Panama game, they parked the bus on top of the 18, so Sargent really didn't have a lot of space. Someone like Brian White, what I've seen, I watched the Vancouver game last night against RSL. He knows how to kind of manipulate space inside the box, and a lot of his finishes aren't the open field finishes that Sargent gets. He's a great finisher, but Brian White, he knows how to make that little bit of space, get that little half step or 6 inches where he can get a shot off and get a finish in. I think that's also playing into the style that we're going to see in the Gold Cup, where and I wish I would have looked at the schedule, but I know like there are some pretty small teams that we're playing, so they're going to tend to sit a little bit deeper. Where Pulisic, he wouldn't necessarily see space, right? He wouldn't be able to play how we would expect him to play, where he would play against Milan or play against some of the top teams.
So Coach Avery earlier alluded to this too. Like, we've got, what did he say, 13 different countries represented on his team at Fort Wayne FC. And the style of play in different countries at different levels is vastly different. Like, my only experience with that was we played futsal in a church gym years ago. It's how that was like the beginning of the end of my playing career, as I tore my ACL twice playing there. But we had a couple nights where there were guys coming from PFW who invited friends from other schools, who invited friends that played at sport club and friends that played other. And we had one night, we had 25 guys. It was just pickup. We had 25 guys show up. And I think there were 15 countries represented by the 25 people that were there. It was so much fun, but also so frustrating because everybody played a different style and they expected you to play like they play. And nobody played the same style of soccer. And so as coach talked about that, I think about that with the U.S. men's national team here is we've got guys, they're Americans, but they're playing in different leagues all over the world. And if you watch much world soccer, the style of play is very, very different. Like my son's been watching Barcelona a lot, and those games are so wide open. The field is just spread. The guys are running onto balls, long balls that are being played, but they're good in tight spaces when they happen to need to play in tight spaces. Like the game is just so different. That's one of my contentions. Like people are here in the United States are like, we need the guys that are playing in the top leagues in Europe to be on the U.S. men's national team. But then we come and we play in CONCACAF and we play teams from Mexico. We play Mexico, who most of their players are playing in Mexico. We play teams from Canada. We play Panama. We play these smaller countries, right? And they are physical, knockdown, drag out matches. And the guys that play in Europe, not that they're not physical leagues, but they are much more wide open. As you mentioned, Josh Sargent scoring open field, open run goals, that he's not going to get that because you've got a center back that's like, you're faster than me and you're better than me, but you're not getting by me. And he'll drop an elbow on you as you try and run past. Like that's how CONCACAF soccer is played, and it's ugly and it's dirty and it's gross and there's fights and there's ripped jerseys. Yeah. But we've got guys that can play that style. Yeah. They're just not playing in Europe. They're playing here and playing in CONCACAF leagues. That maybe that play style is what we need a little bit more of moving forward.
I think
I'm ready.
Let's play. No, but I think it's the age old that like if you play in MLS, you're not playing at the top level. And so we need all these guys that are over from Europe that are playing in the top level to play. And it's not proven to be that effective over the last few games or the last few months. It just hasn't. And so I'm down. Let's switch it up. Let's see what happens. If it turns out to be beneficial, awesome. And then maybe it will kind of kick the other guys in the rear to say, let's figure this out.
Yeah. And let's be honest about all of this. These guys weren't all left off the roster because they didn't perform. Some of them are playing in the Club World Cup. Some of them have injuries. Yeah. Some of them have some things going on in their bodies, just wear and tear because of the number of games. So they weren't just like, you didn't perform, you're out, sit and watch this time. It was, there were legit reasons. So maybe it will play out in our favor that we get to see some of these new guys come in, trying to earn a spot, knowing that, hey, when so-and-so is back from injury, I'm battling for that particular spot. When they come back from the Club World Cup, I'm battling for that spot. It's not given to me because they didn't perform. It's they're coming back and this is my shot. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they do this summer. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we could go on and we could continue talking about U.S. men's national team. We could continue to talk about Fort Wayne FC, but we're hitting that 10 o'clock hour. And as Coach Avery said, it's getting late for him and it's getting late for us. So we're going to wrap up the show here. Guys, thanks for joining me tonight. Thanks again to Coach Avery for joining us for a segment on the show. Hope to have him back. We really do have opportunities to get in front of more of the players and teams from more of the players and the staff from Fort Wayne FC, and we hope to bring them on the show here really soon. So, hey, we want to just remind you of the games coming up this weekend, and bring your report card Wednesday night. Bring your kids' report card Wednesday night. They get in free with the paid adult admission, and then your medical ID on Saturday.
This bodes well. This week bodes well for the Diller household. So.
Yeah. How about that? Hey, thanks for joining us this week. We will talk to you next Sunday night.